Harold, your host for this edition of Black Business Perspectives, brought to you by the African American Community Response Team and U.S. Bank, a collective of community supporting community. A recent report published by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that the number of African American business owners plummeted from 1.1 million in February 2020 to 640,000 in April of this year. 58% were already suffering financial distress at the end of 2019, and a disproportionate number have been denied relief loans established for the pandemic. On this program, I'll introduce you to Karl Benson. He's the president CEO of the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce. We'll discuss the Chamber's mission, its membership, and how it's helping Black businesses here in the Twin Cities during COVID-19. Thank you for joining us for Black Business Perspectives. Now, let me introduce to you Karl Benson. Karl, how are you doing today?
I'm well. I'm very well. Thank you. How are you, Pete?
Good. So glad to see you and know that you're well and safe. It's been a long summer, which is not already here yet.
Yeah, summer really isn't here yet, but it's crazy already. So
it's crazy already, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you aboard. I want you to introduce to our audience, if you may, Karl, the Minnesota Black Chamber, what it's all about, what's its mission?
Yeah, so right now we are the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce. It's really about providing economic empowerment for Black-owned businesses. So we look at it through the initiatives that we won, through mentorships, or organizational networking opportunities, and just sort of creating that opportunity to have access and opportunity to create business for yourself and your families, and of course, ultimately your community.
Karl, how did you become involved with MBCC, and what types of businesses make up the membership overall?
Yeah, so I come from a corporate background. I worked for sports. I did sports marketing and communication for Nike and Jordan brand for about 10 years. When my wife and I moved back to Minneapolis about 3 years ago, I started my own company, primarily still working with athletes, working through that marketing and branding space. But like my company, a small startup, that's what most of the chamber businesses are. Small entrepreneurial startups, primarily working with anything from entrepreneurs, boutique style retailers, personal care assistants, business services. That's really what the chamber's built on.
How do you like working with the members of the chambers and getting involved in the day-to-day work of keeping these businesses strong, Karl?
Right. So, I mean, working with small businesses is something that's always excited me. I always look for those opportunities to meet and learn, and obviously buy Black, because that's one of the initiatives for me. So the more I can find out about them, the more I can talk about them and sort of spread that message and spread that word to others.
You know, it's unfortunate, but 45 to 50% of the nation's Black and Latino business may lose and may not come back due to COVID-19. What is the Black Chambers here in Minnesota doing to slow that loss of Minnesota's Black businesses?
Yeah, so it's a high stat. It's a crazy stat that you just mentioned there. But the reality for us is that we want to make sure that those businesses, those 45% that are possibly going to end or close, that we give them the skills and techniques and infrastructure to come back, while at the same time working with the 55% or so that are still in business and making sure that they're opening up and reopening safely, and making sure they have all the skills and technical assistance that they need to move forward. So it's really a combination of sort of, helping those that are still in business and doing relatively well to getting back on business or getting back to business for those who are not.
Yeah, sounds good. And what options has the MBCC identified that can, really help financially bring relief to the struggling small businesses here locally?
Yeah, I would love to say that it was SBA loans and paycheck protection, but the reality is most of those opportunities, those grants, those federal programs weren't built for us, our businesses, I guess, and we didn't qualify for some reason or another. So we're primarily working on the corporate level, working with corporate partners, corporate initiatives that fall in line with ours, and sort of hoping to raise not only awareness, but funding from them. Yeah.
It's so unfortunate that as you mentioned, the various relief funds are so difficult to access for small businesses. I think that's one of the reasons why this show, your show, and your organization are working to get us up to speed, get Black businesses up to speed. It's so important.
Yeah, it really is, and I talked to countless numbers of small businesses, and I probably can name 7 to 8 who actually got some form of SBA loans. And none of them really got enough, but some that got something. So it's really disappointing.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce, and what are your goals, Karl, for the growth of the organization?
Yeah, so we feel we're in a strong position right now. There is a lot of eyes on us, but it's kind of nice because there's a lot of opportunity that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
We're currently in the midst of creating our new strategic plan. We're building it right before the George Floyd incident, quite honestly. Well, during that time frame where we are all on sort of self-quarantine and in our homes, we decided to create a new strategic plan to sort of address a lot of the issues and shortcomings that we are having from a capital investment side, building out opportunities and investment in ourselves, the business, the organization, and then creating an overall plan for fundraising that will allow us to sort of look at the chamber as a whole and say, where can we be the leader in this marketplace and lead all Black business organizations in the state of Minnesota?
How important is it for businesses to know about the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce, Karl, and participate with it, do you think?
Yeah, I honestly think it's key. I think for Black-owned businesses, there's this room and there's a space right now where there's so many organizations, so many committees, so many groups that are doing so many different things, good things, great things, but at the same time, there needs to be a hub. And I think as it relates to business, the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce should be that hub. I know in the past and over the last 13 years of organization, we haven't actually led in that area. And we've allowed others to sort of move into that space of leadership. We want to make sure that we're getting back there and taking that back over and letting folks know that if you have a Black-owned business in the state of Minnesota, and if you're looking to sort of excel and do some of the things that we hope you want to do, the Black Chamber of Commerce is really where you need to start. And we hope to have those the opportunities and resources to sort of help them out.
That's fantastic. You know, we close our show, our program, with a segment that we call Ask the Expert. You certainly are an expert in business, business overall, being the head of the Minnesota Black Chamber. So I'm going to ask you, what 3 tips would you give potential business owners for surviving COVID-19?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, you have to be prepared to reopen. To get into business or reopen, you have to make sure you're doing that safely. It's more important than almost anything right now. Oftentimes, businesses are reopening a little too quickly and aren't prepared for their employees and their customers to come in. So we want to make sure that first and foremost, you're prepared to open up and reopen safely. Secondly, we want to make sure that you have a strong business insurance, have an accountant, and you have a legal assistant or on retainer. So those 3 things are super important. When you start talking about insurance, you have to have that for your business. There's no way around it. And of course, the accounting, if you don't have your money right, and then legal assistance in times like this or times where your building burns down, what are your rights? You need to know your rights. So a lot of times that's a high investment for small businesses, but it's really something that's probably key to every business surviving. And then finally, of course, I would say looking at it from the standpoint of reevaluating and revamping your business. So looking at it and saying, where are my opportunities to be both brick and mortar, but also online? What businesses can I partner with? What falls in line, and what type of synergies can I find with other businesses to sort of, split some of that brick and mortar space expense, and at the same time buying and supplies and whatnot. And realistically looking at it from a community standpoint. So for us, that third point is really about surviving, all of us surviving and thriving throughout this whole COVID-19 pandemic.
Fantastic information and wise words for those businesses out there who are, struggling and holding on. And I would say, hold on, It's not going to last forever, we hope.
We hope that's true. Absolutely. We'll be all right. We have to do it together, though.
Yeah, do it together. Karl, thank you for joining us for this edition of Black Business Perspective. And thank you, the audience, for joining us here as well for another edition of Black Business Perspective, brought to you by the African American Community Response Team and U.S. Bank, a collective of community supporting community. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time. And until next time, be safe, be well.